Welcome everyone to the Facebook Friday Q&A here on OTRS Central. Uh, Looks like I had so many questions that I have decided to break this up into two parts. That way it's not one huge long video. So you're going to get two Facebook Friday Q&A videos. This is part one. Thanks to all of you guys that went to the OTRS Central Facebook page, liked the page, and posted your questions in response to the stats I'd asked for them. So let's get started, see how many I can get through for this part number one. Ben Hahn asked, what would it take for you to completely stop watching the current WWE product altogether? Probably a variety of factors. The WWE product would have to lack any and all redeeming qualities. Um, so even when it's bad, there still occasionally are those redeeming things that keep me watching. Maybe it would just be a thing of me thinking even more that wrestling has passed me by. Maybe it would also be in part a lack of desire to want to continue to do this OTRS Central show anymore. I think, in fact, that would probably be the biggest contributing factor because there's times where I truly believe that the only reason I watch wrestling is because I'm doing this show, and that's just the truth of the matter. So that's probably some of the things that it would take. Brian Walmer, thoughts on the WCW women's title and women's cruiserweight title, the cruiserweight tag titles? I have no thoughts. WCW being WCW. Andy Nielsen, what'll happen first, Vince dying or Vince retiring? Probably Vince retiring, in part because either he gets terminally ill or he starts to have something that affects his mental capacity significantly, or he would be forced to retire because the WWE would be in a financial position where the board of directors, shareholders demanded change, and it happened whether he wanted it or not. Taryn Rooks, will you ever do another review again with the old OTRS crew? Oh, never say never. I'm sure it could happen at some point in time. I just don't know when. James Forcum, what would your reaction be if Michael Jordan showed up at the Royal Rumble with a baseball bat wearing a Washington Wizards jersey? Well, that would be the most ridiculous thing that has ever been um, insinuated. It would never happen. You'd have a better chance of the U.S. government admitting that the official story about September the 11th is a complete and total farce, which it is, but they'll never get them to admit it. You'd have a better chance of that happening than this happening. This is completely ridiculous and stupid. I would laugh because it's comedy of the highest order. Why would Michael Jordan, who only ever played for the Chicago Bulls, want to wear a Washington Wizards jersey? That makes no sense. Why would he have a baseball bat when he only played basketball? Just saying. Oh, and to those of you smartasses that sit there and say, well, he was playing baseball in Space Jam, you know, let's keep in mind, while this was a true story documentary, certain creative liberties were taken. That's all I'm saying. It's an Illuminati conspiracy. Owen Fitch, if you could wrestle any wrestler from any point in time, who would it be and why? Probably Macho Man, because he was the Macho Man. I know he'd have everything planned out, so I hopefully possibly couldn't screw it up and we put on a good match. And can you give my channel a shout out, Wrestling Fortune 44? Wrestling Fortune 44! There, I shouted it out. Let's see here. Eric Rivera Cubas. Superstar that would benefit if Lesnar, Cena, Reigns were out suddenly. Who would rise and stay a champion? Randy Orton. I think I'm joking. Randy Orton. Triple H, perhaps, because if that happened, that would be like a nearly apocalyptic scenario. So as a result, Triple H would have to go into a more full-time role. Peter Gunn, what's the better accomplishment, winning the main title 16 times or defending that same title successfully for 3 years? Guess it depends. I mean, if you won the title 16 times, that assumes a long period of time at the top getting paid as the top guy, so that probably would be the better thing. You know, defending the title for 3 years means you were able to generate enough interest and draw enough money to justify carrying the title for 3 years. So I guess it just depends on your perspective. Dylan might as well be Schwartz asks, why did you stop watching TNA? I know a lot of them have similar size and style, but not all do, and they tell simple yet very effective stories that you want to get into. Plus, they have lively crowds and feature their tag teams well, and their women are in actual feuds. Well, the first part of that was one reason why. A lot of them have the similar size and similar style. Too much of any one thing is not good. When I sit there and I turn on NXT, and it seems like, to me, my opinion, that the majority of them are about my size, that's a problem. There's too much of the freaking same. You know, I don't know. And also, it's just the fact of it would be 5 to 6 matches every week, and most everything had absolutely no purpose, and there was nothing to really get engaged in, even with it only being an hour and flat out. With NFL season coming around, I just thought I had better things to do with my time, and as a result, that was one of the first things to get chopped off. Let's see here. Francisco or Hernandez, do you think that when Rusev versus Cena eventually comes, people will get 100% behind Cena? Or will the dynamics be wonky between those two? This is an interesting question. The good thing about Rusev, from a standpoint of wanting to get the people to cheer for Cena, is that A, this wouldn't be a title feud. You would assume that this wouldn't be a title feud, but who knows? But you would assume it's not going to be a title feud. You would also assume that because of Rusev's style, a lot of the snarkier, smarkier, more serious fans aren't exactly going to get behind Rusev either. So as a result, you would hope that if there's ever going to be a feud where Cena actually was the hero, it would be this one. But Cena would still have to be booked in a way where Rusev seemed like a big obstacle, a big force. It couldn't be the same old Super Cena bullshit. Otherwise, you might indeed end up with Rusev getting cheered. The booking is important, and many things are important. Jermaine Boyd, will the Spurs have trouble getting back to the finals? Oh, sure. It's not a guarantee. It's no lock. But they look like they have a pretty good chance of doing just that. It was always a challenge. Let's see here. Kennedy Ramirez. Would an outdoor winter show like the Winter Classic of the NHL work in the WWE? They're going to wrestle in a snowball fight. He's dancing with the snowman, by God. We know how to settle this. To the sleds! Fucking awesome. It'd be a train wreck, but that fucking sounds awesome. Duke Morris. Is R-Truth one of the most underutilized talents of the past 6 years? Yeah, I think so a little bit. He's had runs and he's had some moments, but I don't always feel like he's been well utilized. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Brian Belaski, what match made you decide to begin watching pro wrestling and become a fan of the product? I don't know that there is a specific match that I can remember that hooked me and got me started. It was just more around the time I was 4 years old, AWA, WWF. The match that kept me a fan of the product, for good, was Andre Hogan WrestleMania 3. Jack Gibbons, how would you book Daniel Bryan's return? If he was able to come back, I'd have him come back at the Royal Rumble in the Rumble match. I've laid it out before. I think that I would do something where if you want to get Reigns to Lesnar, but you still kind of want to have him go through Triple H and finish that off, and then maybe you're doing something where Reigns starts off number 1, Triple H number 2, similar to what you did with Vince and Austin back at 99. And then you bring in Orton and you bring in Rollins and you bring in Kane. But then all of a sudden, here comes Dean Ambrose. And then here comes, let's say, Daniel Bryan, and the fucking first big surprise of the night. And, the whole shit's going off. And I probably would send Daniel Bryan at Seth Rollins heading into WrestleMania 31 if I was going to go in that direction. Alan Pesson, Kurt Angle, and Chris Benoit had a lot of great technical matches. Which one stands out to you the most? I always liked their match at WrestleMania 17 because I liked how even after the match they were still going at it. Yeah, I don't know if one stands out above the rest in terms of just its sheer greatness, if you will, but that would probably be my favorite between them. Chris Young, do you think WWE will ever give the people what they want because it's the right thing, or will it always be because of competition if there will ever be a company to compete against them in the future? You know, this is one of these things that people could sit there and say that the WWE doesn't give them what they want, but to a degree they have. Rollins is the Money in the Bank winner. Daniel Bryan won the belt at WrestleMania 30. Brock Lesnar is the current WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Seems like to me a lot of the serious fans have gotten a lot of the things that they've wanted this year. Just saying. But yeah, I won't even go into all that. Let's see here. David Bentz asked, looking back at what women WWE had during 2003 to 2004, which diva would have made a good first lady of Evolution? A woman who could style and profile and may possibly be a successful in-ring competitor. I don't know if you needed an in-ring competitor in terms of a lady in that faction. The lady that probably would have pulled it off the best to me would have been Stacy Keibler. That's the one you probably would have wanted to have in your group. You had the long, leggy blonde eye candy, but she could be used in terms of seducing others to distract them. She could accomplish a lot of things. So I would think at that point in time that Keebler probably would have been the way to go. Joey Thorpe, do you think the Sean O'Haire character would have worked if given a chance and not cut? I'm not sure if it would have worked, but it should have been given more of a chance. Alberto Torres, why does the WWE seem to ignore the Cena Lesnar feud from 2003 as part of their build-up for Night of Champions? Entirely different characters, especially Cena, at an entirely different era of the company. This is a company that didn't want to acknowledge Triple H and Taker had fought at WrestleMania 17 in the build-up to WrestleMania 27, so they most certainly are not going to mention that. Let's see here. Michael Williamson. Who would win in a backstage politic match between Hogan, HBK, Triple H, Austin, Orton, and Cena? Okay, we'll toss out Orton immediately. No chance in hell. Period. He's number 6. He's not even close. He's not even in the fucking stratosphere. Man, some great politickers. Triple H managed to marry himself into the hierarchy of the company and has had a longer run than Cena, so I'll bounce Cena. That leaves your Fantastic Four of Hogan, HBK, Triple H, and Austin. Triple H, tremendous politicker. Stone Cold Steve Austin, tremendous politicker. Shawn Michaels, tremendous politicker. But there's only one Hogan. Ask HBK and Triple H what it's like to go up against Hogan in politics. Both of them are eliminated instantaneously. So that leaves you Hogan and Austin. At the end of the day, Hogan rules over all when it comes to politics. Even Austin and Hunter and freaking Shawn, Cena, Orton all could take lessons from Hogan's skilled ability to politic. I mean, he was presidential in that way. I mean, just incredible. Daniel Carlton, when did you first discover pro wrestling was scripted entertainment, or did you always kind of know from the beginning? Oh, I was teeny tiny little shit. I didn't know. But then my dad would always tell me it was fake and it was scripted and it was hokey, even though he'd sit there and watch it with me. So probably by the time I was about 7 or 8, I understood that this shit was fake. So it was scripted. It was phony. I understood that. Probably said it a billion times, comes from Salman Khalid. But who are your top 5 or 10? I remember back in the old OTRS Central, you had the top 5 listed, but Hogan and Taker are all I remember. It was Hogan, it was Taker. Oh. It was Macho Man Randy Savage, The Rock, and then you had Jake the Snake Roberts, Eddie Guerrero, Ultimate Warrior would be in that list. The Legion of Doom, they'll be on that list as well. Dean Yates closes out this portion of the Q&A. Worst use of an undefeated streak, Tatanka or Ryback? Both pretty bad utilizations, but Ryback's ended up being worse to me because now you look at the position they're in as a company. Part of the thing of having Lesnar as the champion is he needs opponents. If you'd have built up Ryback into the monster he should have been built up into, there's an opponent for Lesnar that has some appeal. But sadly, we didn't get that. Thanks for your watching and questions for this part 1. Part 2 is coming up.